Welcome to the very first episode of Feast TV, where each month we're going to bring the pages of the magazine to life. In this first episode, we're going to take you to Sanctuary to learn how to make the 12 Miles Out cocktail. You're going to learn how to make the perfect pizza crust from Schnucks Cook's Cooking School. We're going to introduce you to Mike Randolph and learn how he balances out Half and Half and Little Country Gentlemen in the same spot. Then we're going to head over to Truffles, where Chef Brandon is going to give you a little Truffle 101. And we're going to wrap things up with a behind the scenes at a coffee dinner hosted by Kaldi's. Speaking of coffee, one of our features this month is entirely focused on cooking with coffee. And so throughout this episode, I'm going to be teaching you how to make a coffee gnocchi with a spiced chicken thigh that also has coffee in that spice mixture. Gnocchi is made with potatoes mixed with flour, and the dough in this recipe actually has very finely ground coffee in it. It's one of the ways that we're going to incorporate coffee into this overall dish. And you don't always think about using coffee in that way, but you'll be really surprised at the way that it really just kind of infuses the flavor of the gnocchi in this recipe. Okay, so we have scooped out all of the potato, and this is actually a ricer. It's a really great way to make mashed potatoes or something like gnocchi because it doesn't overwork the potato itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass these potatoes through the ricer. Go ahead and check out this video with Matt Sider, one of our columnists, and when we come back, we'll finish up the dough.
Folks, how we doing? Matt Sider from Sanctuary here. Today we are going to be going over the 12 Miles Out cocktail. Back in Prohibition, at one point, the borders offshores were 3 miles out, 3 miles away from the shoreline. That was considered international waters. That's where booze was, again, legal. What the government found out and figured out a little bit later on during Prohibition is that the rum-running boats, the rowboats, could actually go out 3 miles and be just fine. So what they did to deter that is they actually extended the miles. They extended it, I think, 2 times. Second time was 12 miles out. Rougher seas, rowboats couldn't go out there. And that's what this drink is named after. This one is 1-1-1, Swedish Punch, white rum, and Calvados. There's no particular order that these need to be poured or mixed. You just grab the bottles closest one to you. And like I said, this is all equal parts, so we're just doing 1 ounce of each of these. This is Swedish Punch. Nice blend of tea, a couple different types of rums, a little bit of citrus. We got our white rum. And last but not least, one of the nicer spirits I like to work with, kind of a all year round, Calvados. This is a pear and apple brandy from the Normandy region of France. Gonna add a little bit of ice, and then we'll just stir this. Nice stir, chill it down, dilute it a little bit. Pour this right into our cocktail glass. And last but not least, we're gonna give this just a little bit of citrus, just because this is all booze. Take a simple orange twist, perfume your glass. That's the 12 Miles Out. The big rage nowadays is aging spirits. Everybody's doing a barrel age, everybody's doing draft age cocktails, bottle age cocktails, stuff of that nature. All you need is a mason jar and a cool, dark place in your closet. Why age in glass as opposed to a barrel? Well, people age in a barrel to get those barrel notes. Whiskeys do it, rums do it. It turns them darker. Calvados does it even. They want that charcoal, they want that wood, they want the vanilla from the barrels to be in the spirit. Aging in glass is obviously not going to do that. What this does, aging in glass, it's going to have a neutral aging vessel, this glass. It's not going to impart any flavor. But what it is going to do is it's going to allow those spirits, whatever you put in it, to marry a little bit more and to kind of come into a little bit of harmony. What's really nice about glass aging like this is that you're essentially creating quite a few cocktails at once. So you're batching. So when this is done, perfect time to have a party because you've already got the drink made up. All you got to do is stir it up and serve it up. Real easy. And this is the hard part, but just waiting. Find a cool, dark corner in your closet. Put that in there. You can put it in the very back of your liquor cabinet. That'll do just fine as well. And just let it sit. That's all you have to do is just let it sit. After about 3 weeks, I would start to taste this. Whenever it starts to taste good to you, then it's done. Throw it over some ice, throw it in a glass, get back and enjoy. Cheers.
So in this bowl, I just have a cup of regular flour and a pinch of salt. And I'm going to add the coffee to this. Now this coffee is just regular coffee. You can choose whatever roast you like. But it's been passed through a spice grinder or a coffee mill one more time to make it extremely fine. And so I'm gonna go ahead and do just a quarter of a cup, mix that up. Then I'm going to add that to the potatoes, which as you can see have entirely been riced. So you make a well in the center, and I've already added my flour mixture. Now I'm just pouring in the egg. Just like pasta, we're gonna kind of bring it together. This recipe, by the way, is actually by Frank McGinty, who we're going to introduce you to later on in the segment. You're just gonna kind of work your dough until it's not sticky anymore, and I'm getting to that point. This is looking pretty good, and speaking of perfect dough, take a look at this segment with Lucy Schnook at the Schnook's Cooks Cooking School.
Hi, I'm Chef Lucy from Schnook's Cooking School. I'm going to be making an Italian fontina, fig, and prosciutto pizza. What we're really going to focus though on is how to get a really nice crispy crust. What I'm going to do is start with 1 cup of warm water. So we have a packet and a half of yeast in here. We're going to actually add a tablespoon of sugar. While we're waiting for our yeast to finish fermentation process, we're gonna add in our flour to our mixer. We just have the hook attachment on here. It is a 3 1/4 cup for the recipe, but we're gonna add our last 1/4 cup slowly towards the end. We're gonna add our salt in with our flour and just get that mixed in. 2 tablespoons of oil we're gonna add to this. And now that our yeast is nice and foamy and you can actually smell what's happening, we're actually gonna pour it right into the center. Start it kind of slow, let it start to come together, and then we'll speed it up. So now we have a smooth, real elastic dough, where if you actually pinch a little piece off, you should get a little bit of stretch out of that. Get a little bit of oil into our bowl, and then we're just gonna use the dough to sort of coat the bowl and coat all sides of the actual dough. So now you just wanna put your dough either in a warm place in your kitchen, or if you have a proofing oven, which is basically allows you to set your oven from 85 to 110 degrees. You want to put it in there. It's going to make it a little faster. Now that this is doubled in size, it's ready to come out. I'm going to uncover the bowl, and don't be scared when you see the dough sort of start to deflate. That's just what happens. We want to flip it out onto a floured surface. Remember, it's going to be a little sticky because we coated that bowl in oil. So you want to make sure that you have enough flour to really work the dough. Split this in half since this is enough dough for 2 pizzas. And we're just going to form this to a relatively round shape first. So we just want to stretch that out just a little bit, and then we want to start rolling. So what you want to do is you want to start in the middle, go back, and come back to the middle, go forward, and we're going to rotate the dough. Again, to make sure it's not sticking to the table. Middle, back. The next thing we're gonna do is just transfer this to a pizza peel and a little bit of cornmeal on here. That actually adds a little bit of crunch to the crust as well. And to transfer this, since the dough seems very fragile, I actually just fold it in half, put it on my pizza peel. Now we're gonna dock the dough. When you dock dough, what you're doing is basically putting holes in it so that we don't get large bubbles in the center. We're not gonna dock these outer edges though, because we want that to puff up. And we're actually gonna put this in the oven now, because we're gonna do a par bake. That's gonna allow the bottom to at least start to form a nice crust. And then when we take it out, then we'll top it. That way we're not overweighing the dough before it's ready. Now that we have our dough par cooked, we can actually feel on the bottom, you can tell how it's already getting crispy. So we're already sort of a step ahead. Now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna spread about a half a jar, more or less depending on how sweet you want this, because this is a sweet and savory pizza. So now we're just gonna start laying down some prosciutto di Parma. We're gonna add a little bit of Italian fontina, drizzle with a little bit of olive oil. We're especially though gonna make sure that we get our crust. One thing I really like is when a crust comes out of the oven for it to be really golden and shiny and crispy, and actually this oil kind of allows the top coating of the crust to get really crispy. Then we're just gonna stick this in the oven for about 8 minutes. Once your pizza comes out of the oven, you wanna let it rest just a minute. Then you can either use a pizza cutter or a knife. You really just wanna make sure that it's sharp enough so that when you cut into your pizza, you're not just dragging your cheese or sort of ruining your actual crust. You can actually hear that crust too, which is really nice. And you can actually pick it up without it completely just busting. You get that nice crispiness that you can actually hear on the bottom. Just remember that pizza dough is really like a blank canvas. So really you can put anything on there. You don't have to necessarily stay traditional with tomato sauce and mozzarella. Think of lamb and different things that you can add to a pizza. If you want to learn how to make this dough hands-on, come and join us at Schnucks Cooking School on April 24th.
So we've got our gnocchi dough. We're gonna cut it into 4 even pieces. You can kind of see, obviously, how the coffee is like perfectly distributed throughout the dough. And then from here, we're gonna roll these guys into a ball and then just roll it into a log shape, and we're going to cut our gnocchi from here into 1-inch pieces. Easy. And to be super traditional, you don't have to do this, but if you run a fork on your gnocchi, it forms these ridges that will hold on to sauces much better than just the plain pillows, but it certainly is not necessary. So while I'm finishing these up, check out this next piece that profiles Mike Randolph.
So I always had this idea to do kind of breakfast and lunch and just to try to focus on, you know, it's actually pretty simple. It's like good bacon, good pancakes, properly cooked eggs. I always thought that that was something, a void that I could fill when I moved to St. Louis. So that's kind of how half and half came about. It's comfort food. I mean, it's simple stuff, you know. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just trying to do eggs well. I always knew at some point after these fast casual or nice casual restaurants, fine dining would be the next frontier for me. I just didn't know quite how quickly it would happen. Having this amazing opportunity to have a restaurant that's closed at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and this void, you know, for a dinner service at night, kind of brought on Little Country Gentlemen. The basic philosophies of the food are the same, but everything else about it is just totally different. You know, if you come in here at 12 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, it's packed. There's a ton of energy, a really diverse crowd, and food's kind of being shuffled in and out. People are all over the place. Food's coming out of the kitchen, and it's just kind of this crazy energy that goes on for 6 or 8 hours, and then you do it again the next day. Half and half is kind of this frenetic beast, whereas Little Country Gentleman is very kind of calm and calculated, and the music's transformed, the lights are dim, the ambiance is just totally transformed any way that we can, down to the attire of the servers and things like that. We really want to create kind of like a 1920s, 1930s kind of Prohibition era style feel here, someplace that you're comfortable sitting down and eating for 2 or 3 hours. We've had people come in day and night, and we've actually had people come in for Little Country Gentlemen that have never heard of Half and Half, which is strangely gratifying, so that's nice. Between Half and Half and Little Country Gentlemen, for sure, we have a ton of people that we'll see 2, 3 times a week, maybe twice at Half and Half and once at Little Country Gentlemen. So.
My mama cooks in Italy, mama swims in Argentina, mama's got a chunga, yeah. My mama's works in Venezuela, mama likes Cinderella, mama's got a chunga, yeah. I say hola, hola, hola bossa nova. I say yeah, 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 yeah. I got a chunga, yeah. Ba, 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 ba. My daddy jokes in Tijuana, daddy smokes marijuana, daddy's got a chunga, yeah. My daddy wrote Don Quixote, daddy wrote El Quixote, daddy's got a chunga, yeah. I say no, 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 no.
So I am just poaching my gnocchi in a pot of simmering salt water. And as soon as the gnocchi pop to the surface, then they're finished. And I am ladling them out of the hot water and into an ice bath. This actually is a spider, and it's readily available in grocery stores and invaluable in this type of an application. So you just pull the finished gnocchi out, dump it in the ice water, and you're good to go. So up next, we're going to introduce you to a chef that is bringing truffles straight from Umbria to St. Louis in fewer than 2 days. And when we come back, we're going to start on the chicken thighs.
The truffle is it's basically a subterranean mushroom. It's not a parasite like a mushroom is. If like a wild mushroom that would grow off of a tree, it basically takes the nutrients from the tree for it to grow, so it's basically like a parasite. The truffle actually works in harmony with the tree, so it will attach itself usually to the root and actually help the tree grab nutrients from the soil. So it actually really works together in harmony with the tree itself. You have to wait, and you have to actually know specifically when would be the best time to pull the truffle. Actually, the dogs are trained for a specific smell. It's almost like a fruit. You know, you have to allow it to ripen, and you have to pick it or harvest the truffle at its peak ripeness, which actually, when that happens, the spores of the truffle actually open up, and that's when it actually allows its aroma to escape. Truffle mania came about out of actually frustration to find a high quality truffle product. We cut out all the middlemen. We actually partnered with Matteo, who is our farmer, and product literally comes straight from the ground right to our door. And we're averaging anywhere between 48 and 72 hours from the ground to the table. Matteo actually will spore 3 times a year, which means he'll go out and they'll actually spore or feed the trees on the land. We have about 12 hectares of land, which is about 4 acres that we section off and try and do 3 to 4 different types of truffles, so we can try and have truffles throughout the year. And then what we've done is developed a line of jarred products so that when we do have in between times when we don't have fresh product, that we can still offer something. And then one of our other bigger experiments has been with some spirits, and we actually infused some vodka to have a little truffle vodka. And then we've also worked with some truffle ice cream, and where we've actually made a little truffle tweel cone for the ice cream with some of the truffle honey as well. So we've been having some fun.
The chicken thighs are actually going to be dusted with this really intense spice mixture. The recipe is available on feaststl.com in our recipe database section, so to get all of the exact ingredients. But it's equal parts a bunch of different spices, including smoked paprika, chili, salt, and then what we do here is just actually heat a lot of these spices until they're smoking in order to release a lot of those essential oils. And so coffee is incorporated again in this, and here we're going to actually put in a 1/4 cup of that finely ground coffee. So that's going to amp up the coffee flavor throughout the entire dish. Just kind of combine everything, and then we're going to sprinkle it on those chicken thighs. These are deboned, skin-on chicken thighs, and they've just been kind of cut into smaller pieces. I'm just going to sprinkle a good amount of our spice mixture on top. And once these are fully covered, they're gonna go in the fridge for about 30 minutes just to help the coating to adhere. And then we're just gonna pop them right in the pan. You want to make sure to use an oven-proof skillet because you're going to take this directly from the stovetop to the oven. So the skin is nice and brown. I dusted some of the spice mix on the other side of the chicken thigh, flipped them over, and now they're gonna stay in the oven for about 20-30 minutes until they're done. And speaking of cooking with coffee, while these chicken thighs are roasting, take a look at this behind-the-scenes video of the latest Kaldi's coffee dinner. I'm here in Columbia, Missouri for one of Kaldi's coffee-infused dinners, so let's check in with Frank McGinty before the action starts.
I think we found that through kind of the common platform of food, we can take some of these really unique coffees and get people to understand what we mean when we say a coffee tastes like blueberries. A lot of people think that there may be flavor added to the coffee, but when it's actually how the coffee is naturally processed, how it's grown, where it's from, the varietal it is. So from there, we take it to something that's familiar, being food or a dinner. And they kind of have sometimes those light bulb moments where they go, okay, I do taste blueberry and it's coffee because it was paired with goat cheese.
So that's the first course.
It actually is, yeah. We're doing a goat cheese and coffee panna cotta. So it's with a coffee from Sumatra that was processed naturally, which actually means they leave the fruit on the coffee bean or seed,
Okay.
dries like a raisin, and the coffee itself picks up a really inherent blueberry note. Just like wine of terroir and varietals and everything else, it's what the coffee brings to the table.
So as you kind of went through and tasted all these different coffees,
Yeah.
did the coffee come first and then the idea for the dish, or did you know that you wanted, for example, to make
Yeah.
veal cheeks and then you decided to pair? How did
Usually
that work?
it's the catalyst is the coffee. So it's, again, a blueberry note or a note of orange and acidity and stuff like that. So yeah, usually it's, okay, the coffee tastes like this, let's build from there. But again, it's using a predominant flavor note that we pick up in the cup or from the coffee itself and adding that to the food. Coffee to us isn't a flavor. Coffee is an ingredient, it's a beverage, it's an agricultural product. Coffee has a number of different, hundreds of different flavor profiles. So these single origin coffees that we get and use for these dinners, and we have at Kaldi's all the time, those to us, when we cup them or taste them professionally, have very, very forward flavor profiles. So it's taking coffee that's acidic, and when we talk about acidity in coffee, it's not acid in the stomach, it's actually brightness and citrus. Taking that and replacing maybe vinegar with that bright note from the coffee. So using that to enhance other flavors or to cut down on something that's really rich.
And in this menu, you use it in a brewed form, as also as grounds. I mean, how are the different ways that you're incorporating the forms of coffee?
Yeah, a number of different ways. So like the panna cotta with the goat cheese is actually infused into the cream mixture before it's strained and then added the gelatin. There's a lamb course that it's actually rubbed and then braised. There's veal cheeks that we do a coffee cola with Fitz's. And actually the cheeks were braised in the coffee cola.
Fun.
So there's a number of different ways beyond, making ice cream or tiramisu or even just a dry rub for a beef tenderloin. Even we're doing a course for hors d'oeuvres. It's a shrimp that's poached in cascara, which is actually the cherry of the coffee plant or the coffee seed, dried, and then you can turn it into a tea. So it's very forward, kind of tobacco, black tea, almost the base of what like Southerners would make sweet tea out of. So from there, we're doing shrimp and grits, and we're going to poach shrimp in the tea, and then that will be the coffee element of the course.
Oh, cool. I can't wait.
It should be fun. So this first course, the coffee that we use is a Sumatra Wahana Natural. So the whole course is built around this blueberry kind of forward coffee, and it's nothing that's been added, it's just how the coffee was processed. So it kind of mimics the coffee, the blueberry and the spice, but then the goat cheese helps to balance it on a savory end. So the next course is soup I've done in the past, but it kind of screamed for coffee. It's a sweeter soup. The coffee element is actually a Rwandan coffee that has some acidity to it, acidity in a good way, citrus, cranberry. But I actually took bacon from Jones Heritage Farm, which is in Cape Girardeau, and a good family friend. Tossed it in coffee and brown sugar and roasted it, so almost candied it and coffeed it at the same time. So it's kind of a robust element to cut through some of the sweetness. I rubbed the lamb shank with ras halanou, which is a really forward Moroccan spice, and the coffee. The coffee we used is a Colombian coffee from Nariño, which is a really great region of Colombia. It's got a sweet note to it, and then roasted it, so it's kind of a balance on the sweet, the spicy kind of big note of the Moroccan spice and the sweetness of the coffee. So this next course was really fun. You know, at Kaldi's, we do a lot of collaborations with other local businesses. This one kind of highlights our collaboration with Fitz's Root Beer Cola Company. So they, with us, came up with a coffee cola, which we sell at our cafes bottled. It's actually their first caffeinated beverage because of the coffee. So this is a veal cheek braised in that cola. So there's a nice sweetness to it, but there's also some brewed coffee in it as well. Last course, so another collaborative project we have is with Patrick Chocolate here in Columbia. So we asked them for some help with dessert. What would they do with it? They actually have a really great pastry chef on their team. So she sent over this recipe. What it is, it's our collaborative bar where it's their chocolate and our coffee within the coffee chocolate bar. We've taken that and turned it into a chocolate mousse, which is in the demi-tasse. Thank you.
So the chicken's out of the oven and I'm letting it rest a little while. What I've done here is I've just put in a couple of tablespoons of butter and I'm gonna saute the gnocchi so that it kind of crisps up and gets a little golden exterior for service. This actually, again, is one of Frank's recipes. So if you liked what you saw at that Kaldi's dinner in the segment that just aired, this is a recipe that you'll definitely want to try. The coffee that is in the rub just kind of permeates the flavor of the chicken, but then having the coffee gnocchi as well kind of adds that final, almost that note that you can barely put your finger on. You're not quite sure what it is that you're tasting. It tastes like coffee. It has kind of that richness and that nuance to it, but it doesn't overwhelm any of the other flavors. We're gonna serve that with just a little bit of roasted vegetables on the side. A nice, simple, coffee-infused dinner. Perfect for a weeknight meal. Be sure to pick up the April issue to check out all the articles that inspired these great segments. And of course, I want to thank our sponsors, Kaldi's Coffee. See you next month.